A classic book in literature is one that can stand the test of time and is usually considered to be a representation of the period in which it was written, and the work merits lasting recognition. Classics usually have a universal appeal and integrate themes that are understood by readers from a wide range of backgrounds. Around the World in 80 Days takes place in the beginning in London in the year 1872. As the story continues farther on, they begin to go to Suez, Bombay, Calcutta, Hong Kong, San Francisco, New York, and then all the way back to Liverpool. This book can widely be considered a classic because of how well it represents the time period. It has universal themes of human spirit and bravery, adventure, life and love, all wrapped into one that makes it easy for all human beings to understand. 1872 was a time of invention and innovation and was able to show a more modern and convenient world through the use of trains, steamboats, and plenty of other types of transportation that makes our world seem so easy to get around than ever would have been imaginable. Passepartout is one of the main characters in the book that most portrays the time period in which the book took place. He's a very hardworking and loyal person and is amazed by what he sees and learns. He has a mindset of constant adventure and wants to go and explore the unknown. It's what everyone wanted to do at this time because all of a sudden the world was seeming such a large place. He was amazed at seeing things like buffalo herds and listening to lectures about Mormons and even at the sights of Paris. In addition, Phileas Fogg is the perfect portrayal of the typical English gentleman of the time period that is always precise with time and never seems to be too stressed about anything of dire importance and just minded his own business. Overall, Around the World in 80 Days is a classic because people can make connections and relate to it. Jules Verne was born February 8, 1828 and died March 24, 1905, so he lived in the time period of his story. He was considered the father of science fiction because he wrote about technological advancements years before they became reality. His imagination was sparked by new things like railroads and electricity and propellers, and this was largely in part due to him living in Nantes, France, which was a busy maritime port city. Jules was exposed to schooners and ships through his whole life, and his obsession with geography and travel is very capably able to be seen in Around the World in 80 Days. In Jules' early life, he was always annoyed with his parents only wanting to achieve middle-class respectability and decided he would always try to be more successful than them and rebellious. Plus, when Jules Verne was 12, he worked as a cabin boy on an ocean-going ship, but the ship was intercepted by his father before it left, and Jules vowed he would travel by imagination, which sure enough affected the developments of this story, and Jules was able to travel like he always wanted to and go around the world through his writing. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout are able to sightsee and go on boats and trains that Jules was never able to do as a kid. Jules Verne was overall a fairly shy man, and this inspired the character of Phileas Fogg because he was just happy as being alone and keeping to himself.
Is that good?
One of the main scenes in the book that are important to the development of the story is the fact that people believe Phileas Fogg stole £55,000 from the Bank of England, and Mr. Fix was then following Phileas Fogg all around the world. But instead, Hollywood's version of the story made it so that Passepartout was the one that stole the money, and that people were chasing after him, and he was only traveling with Phileas to escape to China. Another main scene in the book that is important to the development of the story is that Phileas Fogg is supposed to have saved Ajuda from being sacrificed and killed in India, but instead Hollywood's version makes it so that Phileas Fogg just meets a girl named Monique in an art museum that just got fired and saves her instead. It was supposed to be a turning point in the movie that made Phileas Fogg look more like a nice human being with actual feelings, but instead it just ended up being a mediocre scene that didn't add much emotion to the movie.
Thank you, Miss LaRoche. You may just have saved our trip.
There you are.
I would like to repay you.
Then take me with you.
Lastly, another main scene of the book that adds to the development of the story is that Phileas Fogg is supposed to be a reserved and non-pompous man, but Hollywood's version makes Phileas Fogg a ridiculously charismatic inventor that is slightly cocky and is just going around the world for selfish reasons instead of just going to go.
Even you, oh noble Phileas Fogg. There must be something I could offer you that would be worthy of your time.
There is. Your position as head of the Royal Academy.